Holmes, case number 12CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys and the prosecutors are present as well. We are outside the presence of the jury at this time. One of the jurors requested that I give a warning before I turn the lights back on because sometimes the flashing of lights triggers headaches. And so when the lights are off, before I turn them back on, I will try to remember to announce that I'm about to turn the light back on. Is there anything else before we bring the jury in on behalf of the people?
No, Your Honor.
Anything on behalf of the defense, Ms. Spengler? Okay, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Right before the afternoon break, Investigator Perolina was on the witness stand and Ms. Pearson was in the middle of her direct examination. I will advise you that you're still under oath, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. And
Ms. Pearson, you may resume your direct examination.
Ms. Perolina, I'm now going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3098, 3098, 3099, 3095, 3096, and 3097. Thank you. Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately represent what you observed in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3098, 3099, 3095, 3096, and 3097.
Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler?
The 3097 is cumulative to 3096, otherwise no objection.
Okay. Can I see those pictures, please? Thank you. All right, would council approach, please? Okay, the objection as to P-TR-3097 is sustained, but P-TR-3095, 3096, 3098, and 3099 are all admitted without objection and may be published.
Could I have 3098, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
In this photograph, it's a seat located in row 8, seat 12, and we're looking at an impact in a soda cup that was in one of the cup holders.
3099, please.
This is a close-up of that cup, as well as a hole in the cup.
3095, please.
This is the front of the seat, impact 9-6, located in row 8, seat 12. I believe that says correct. Row 8, seat 12.
And 3096.
This is a close-up of that area on the front of the seat in row 8, seat 12.
And I see a number of little black circles in the seat on the front of the cushion. What do those reflect?
Agent DeFran circled the smaller holes, which were consistent with the pellet holes.
And could you then please approach the model and note where row 8, seat 12 is?
I'm going to object to this procedure. May we approach?
Yes. All right, the objection is sustained in part and overruled in part, and Ms. Pearson, you may proceed consistent with my instructions.
And Ms. Petalina, would you step down to the model, and I'm going to ask you to mark row 8, seat 12.
Okay, so once again, row 8 is going to be the first row in the stadium seating. Row 12, starting from the first seat. Would be located right here. 12 rows in from the north.
And to be clear, when you're marking the seat, you're not marking a particular hole or impact or anything like that, is that right?
Correct, I'm just marking the seat and the row.
Thank you. I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3101, 3102, 3103, and 3105. Do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
Or do they fairly and accurately reflect what you observed in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 3101, 3102, 3103, and 3105.
Any objection? Ms. Spengler?
Objection to 3101, no objection to the remainder of the photographs.
Can I see those, please?
Yes.
To clarify, that's a 403 objection.
All right, the 403 objection to P-TR-3101, it's overruled, so that exhibit is admitted. And then P-TR-3102, 3103, and 3105 are admitted without objection. All of those may be published.
Could I have 3101, please? What do we see in this photograph?
Okay, this is impact 9-7 in row 8, seat 13.
3102, please.
This is a close-up of that impact, 9-7.
3103.
This is a close-up of impact 9-8.
And is this still row 8, seat 13?
Yes.
And 3105?
This is a close-up of impacts labeled 9-9.
And again, could you approach the model and put a mark on row 8, seat 13, simply so we know where the seat is located within the theater?
Row 8, the first row in the stadium seating. Seat 13 is one seat over from the previous seat marked, which was seat 12.
Thank you. I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3106, 3107, 3109, 3111, and 3113. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately represent what you observed in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 3106, 3107, 3109, 3111, and 3113.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, without objection, P-TR-3106, 3107, 3109, 3111, and 3113 are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3106, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This photograph is located in row 8, seat 14, with impacts 9-10 and 9-12.
3107?
This is the same seat, row 8, seat 14, with 9-12, 9-10, and 9-11.
3109?
3109 is a close-up of 9-11 in row 8, seat 14.
3111?
3111 is a close-up of impact 9-12 located in the same seat.
3113?
This is a close-up of impact 9-13 in the same seat.
And again, if you could approach the model and note where seat 14 in row 8 is.
Okay, we're back in the same row, row 8, and seat 14 is going to be one seat over to the south, to the right, from the previous seat marked, I'm sorry.
I am next going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 3115, 3114, 3116, 3117, 3118, and 3119. Do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3115, 14, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
Any objection?
Objection to 3117 and 403. No other objections.
Okay, the 403, Rule 403 objection to P-TR-3117 is overruled because the probability value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by one of the dangers identified in the rule. So that is admitted. The other exhibits, P-TR-3115, 3116, 3118, and 3119, and 3114 are admitted without objection, and they may all be published.
Could I have 3115, please? And what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is a close-up of impact 9-14, which was located in row 8, seat 15.
3114?
This is an overall photograph of that same seat, which was seat 15 in row 8.
3116?
Close-up photograph of impact 9-16, located in row 8, seat 15.
3117?
Okay, 3117 is the same seat, so row 8, seat 15, but we're looking at the back at where an impact was located.
3118.
This is going to be a close-up of impact 9-17, which is the impact that you saw in the previous photo, located on the bottom of the back of that seat.
3119.
It's just a close-up of 9-15, which was an impact in the same row and seat.
And now would you approach the model and mark where row 8, seat 15 is in the theater?
Okay, we're coming back to the same row again, so row 8, seat 15 is going to be the next seat to the right, so the seat right next to seat 14.
I'm next going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 3120, 3122, 3123, and 3124. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3120, 3122, 23, and 24.
Any objection, Ms. Spangler?
Objection to 3123 under 403 and due process. No objection to the remainder.
Can I see those? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, the 403 objection to P-TR-3123 is overruled because I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. And so that is admitted and may be published. Similarly, P-TR-3120, 3122, and 3124 are all admitted without objection, and those may be published as well. Thank you.
Could I have 3120, please? And what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is an overall photograph of row 8, seat 17, with impact 9-18.
3122.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-18.
3123.
This is going to be the back of row 8, seat 17, with impact 9-19.
3124.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-19.
And again, would you approach the model and note where row 8, seat 17 is?
Okay, so coming back to row 8, seat 17 is going to be 2 seats over from the last seat that we marked, so 2 seats to the right.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3125, 3129, 3126, 3130, 3131, 3132, 3128, 3134, 3133, 3136, 3137, and 3138. Do you recognize all of those photographs? Oh, you don't have them yet, I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself.
Thank you.
Recognize all of those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And are those photographs that you took in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of People's Exhibits 3125, 3129, 3126, 3130, 3131, 3132, 3128, 3134, 3133, 3136, 3137, and 3138.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
The 3133 under 403 and due process, otherwise no objection.
Can I see those? Thank you. Okay, the objection to P-TR-3133 is overruled under Rule 403. The probative value of the exhibit is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. So that is admitted over objection and it may be published. The rest of the exhibits, P-TR-3125, 3129, 3126, 3130, 3131, 3132, 3128, 3134, 3136, 3137, and 3138 are admitted without objection and may be published.
Could I have 3125, please? What are we looking at here?
Okay, this is the front of seat 18 in row 8, so row 8, seat 18, impact 9-20 and impact 9-22.
3129, please.
This is just a closer photograph of those two impacts, 9-20 and 9-22.
3126.
This would be a close-up photograph of impact 9-20, again located in row 8, seat 18.
3130.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-22.
3131.
Okay, we're now looking at the back of row 8, seat 18, at impacts 9-21 and 9-23.
3132.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-23, again in row 8, seat 18.
3134.
This is a photograph of impact 9-24, row 8, seat 18.
3128.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-21. This was located on the back of the seat.
3133.
This photograph, we're coming back to the front of row 8, seat 18, showing impacts 9-25 and 9-26 down on the seat.
3136.
This is a close-up photograph of 9-25, which is one of the impacts that was on the seat.
3137.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-26, again, also on the seat.
And 3138.
This is impact 9-27, located on the seat, row 8, and that should say seat 18.
And again, if you could approach the model and note where row 8, seat 18 was located within the theater.
Okay, coming back to row 8, again there's 20 seats in row 8, so it may be easier to count back, 20, 19, 18. So it will be the seat located to the right of the last seat marked.
Now, did you also collect 2 seats from the theater?
Yes.
And do you recall what seat numbers those were?
Yes.
What seat numbers were they?
Seat 18 and seat 19 in row 8.
So what we're looking at with this last group of photos was from one of those seats?
Yes, the last seat that I marked was one of the seats that we collected.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3145, 3141, 3142, 3144, and 3148. Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes, I do.
Are they photographs that you took in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for admission of People's Exhibits 3145, 3141, 3142, 3144, and 3148.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3145, 3141, 3142, 3144, and 3148 are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3145, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the seat located in row 8, seat 19, and we're looking at several different impacts to include 9 seat.
3144?
This is impact 9-30, located on the same seat, and this would be the back of the seat.
3148?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-32, located in row 8, seat 19.
And could you approach the model and note where seat 19 in row 8 is located?
Okay, we're still at row 8 here. It's going to be the seat located right next to or to the right of seat 18.
I am next going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 3149, 3150, 3151, and 3152.
Ruled under Rule 403 because I am admitting P-TR-3151 and 3152 without objection, and all 4 exhibits may be published.
Could I have 3149, please? What are we looking at here?
We're looking at row 9, seat 13, an overall photograph as well as 9-33 impact.
3150?
This is a close-up of the impact 9-33, again row 9, seat 13.
3151?
It's a photograph of 2 additional impacts in that seat, seat 13, which would be impact 9-34 and 9-35.
3152?
It's a close-up photograph of impact 9-34, again row 9, seat 13.
Could you approach the model and note where in the theater seat 13 in row 9 is?
Okay, row 9 is going to be the second row here in the stadium seating, and seat 13 will be the 13th seat over left or right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am next going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 3157, 3161, 3160, 3164, 3166, 3156, 3165, 3167, 3168, let's see here. $31.69 and $31.71. Do you recognize all of those photographs?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately represent your observations in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3157, 3161, 3160, 3164, 3166, 3156, 3165, 3167, 3168, 3169, and 3171.
Ms. Spengler, any objection?
Objection to 3166 under 403 in due process. No objection to the remainder of the photographs.
Thank you. All right, the objection to P-TR-3166 is overruled under Rule 403 because I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by the danger, by any of the concerns identified in the rule, in Rule 403. So it is admitted and may be published. The rest of the exhibits, P-TR-3157, 3161, 3160, 3164, 3156, 3165, 3167, 3168, 3169, and 3171 are all admitted without objection and may be published.
Could I have 3157, please? What are we looking at here?
This is row 9, seat 17, impact 9-36. This is the bottom of the seat.
And if we could zoom in a little, or the impact that we see there appears to be bullet-shaped.
Correct.
3161, please. What are we looking at here?
This is the front of that seat, row 9, seat 17, impacts 9-37 and 9-38.
3160.
This is a close-up photograph of 9-37, which was located on the seat.
3164.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-39, again row 9, seat 17, and this would be the back of the seat.
3166.
This is a photograph of the back of the seat showing where impact 9-40 was located.
3156.
This is coming back to the front of the seat showing additional impacts 9-41, 9-43, 9-44, and 9-45.
3165.
It's a close-up photograph of impact 9-41.
3167.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-42, again row 9, seat 17.
3168.
This is a photograph of impact 9-43, row 9, seat 17 in the cup holder.
3169.
This is showing impact 9-44, 9-45 on the other side of the cup holder, as well as the armrest.
3171.
This is a close-up of impact 9-45, again on the armrest, row 9, seat 17.
And could you approach the model and note in the theater where row 9, seat 17 is located?
Okay, so the last seat that we were at here in row 9 was seat 13. So from 13, 17 would be located 4 seats over to the right.
Now, did it take multiple days to document by photographs all of the impacts and holes that were being marked by Charles DeFrance?
Yes, it took me 6 days.
So I'm next going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibit 3172, 3173, 3174, 3175, 3176, 3177, 3179, 3180, 3181, 3178, and 3182. Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately represent what you observed in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3172, 3173, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3173 3172 through 3182 inclusive are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3172, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is row 9, seat 18, so one seat over from the last seat marked on the model, showing several impacts to include 9-46, 9-47, 9-48, 9-49, and 9-50.
3173. Is this a closer view of the bottom of that same seat?
Correct.
3174.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-46 located on the bottom of that seat.
3175.
Close-up photograph of impact 9-47 and 9-48, again in row 9, seat 18.
3176.
This is a close-up of impact 9-49, also on the bottom of the seat, row 9, seat 18.
3177.
This is a close-up of impact 9-50 in the seat cushion of row 9, seat 18.
3179.
Another close-up photograph, this time of impact 9-51, located in the back of the seat of row 9, seat 18.
3180.
These are also going to be located in the back of the seat, impact 9-52 and impact 9-53, again row 9, seat 18.
3181.
These are two additional impacts located on the back of that seat, 9-53, 9-54, row 9, seat 18.
3178.
This is a photograph showing impact 9-55, same row, row 9, seat 18, in the back of the seat.
3182.
This is a close-up photograph of that same impact, 9-55.
And could you note on the model where in the theater seat 18 in row 9 is located by putting a silver dot on it?
Okay, row 9, which is the second row in the stadium seating, and seat 18 will be the seat located next to the seat that we just marked, so one over to the right.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3185 and 3186. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately depict your observations in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 3185 and 3186.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3185 and 3186 are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3185, please? What are we looking at here?
This is the front of the seat in row 9, seat 19, with impact 9-56.
And 3186.
This is a close-up photograph of the same impact, 9-56, row 9, seat 19.
Could you approach the model and note where row 9, seat 19 is located?
Okay, row 9 is the same row that we've been in, and seat 19 will be the next seat over to the right, so one over from seat 18.
I'm next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3187, 3188, 3189, and 3190.
Thank you.
Do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
And do they fairly and accurately represent your observations in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of 3187, 3188, 3189, and 3190.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection?
Objection to 3189 under 403 in due process, no objection to the remainder.
Thank you. Thank you. The objection to P-TR-3189 is overruled because I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. So it is admitted and may be published. P-TR-3187, 3188, and 3190 are admitted without objection and may also be published.
Could I have 3187, please? What are we looking at here?
This is row 9, seat 20, with impact 9-57.
3188,
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-57.
3189,
This is an overall photograph of the back of that same seat, row 9, seat 20, showing impact 9-58.
3190,
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-58.
and would you approach the model and mark where seat 20 in row 9 is located?
Okay, coming back to the same row where we were, row 9, it will be the last seat in the row on the south side.
I am next going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 3192, 3191, 3194, and 3195. And actually, Your Honor, I think 3195 was admitted along with 3197.
It was.
Okay. Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3192, 3191, and 3194.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection?
I don't object to those three. I think there were 4 photographs handed to the
That-
witness.
We determined that 3195 has been previously admitted. All right? So, without objection, P-TR-3191, 3192, and 3194 are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3192, please? And what do we see in this photograph?
This is the seat, row 10, seat 8, impact 9-59, which is a cup located in the cup holder.
3191,
This is an overall photograph of row 10, seat 8, showing several impacts that are circled again in that black permanent marker, as well as impact 9-60, which was located underneath of the seat.
3194.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-60.
And could I also have what has been previously admitted, 3195?
This is going to be another overall photograph of that same seat, row 10, seat 8.
And 3197, which was also previously admitted.
This is just a close-up photograph, again, of those holes, the multiple holes that were circled.
And I would ask you also to approach the model and note where row 10, seat 8 is located in the theater.
Okay, so row 10 is going to be the next row up in the stadium seating. Seat 8 is going to be located 8 seats over from north to south.
I'm now going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibit 3202. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And does that fairly and accurately represent what you observed?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 3202.
Do you have any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
That objection, P-TR-3202, is admitted and may be published.
And could I have 3202 up, please? What are we looking at here?
Okay, this is impact 9-62, row 10, seat 9, and this is going to be on the bottom of the seat.
And if you could approach the model and note where row 10, seat 9 is in the theater.
So coming back up to the same row that we were just in, seat 9 would be 1 seat over from the last seat that we looked at, so 1 seat over to the right or to the south.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3203, 3204, 3206, 3207, 3208, and 3209. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately represent your observations in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of 3203, 3204, 3206, 3207, 3208, and 3209.
Any objection to those being admitted, Ms. Spengler?
Objection to 3203 and 3207 under 403 and due process.
Thank you. council please approach briefly? Thank you. All right, the objection under Rule 403 is overruled based on the reasons that I provided here at the bench. So that, and that's with respect to both exhibits, P-TR-3203 and P-TR-3207. The probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. So those are admitted and may be published. P-TR-3204, 3206, 3208, 3209 are admitted without objection and may be published as well.
And could I have 3203, please? What do we see in this photograph?
This is an overall photograph of row 10, seat 14, showing impacts 9-63 and 9-64.
And to be clear, you were asked to photograph what Charles DeFrance was marking on the seats, is that right?
That is correct.
And you weren't being asked to determine whether it was made by a bullet hole or a shotgun pellet or what kind of implement created the hole, right?
Correct. I was just responsible for the photographs.
And your use of the word impact simply reflects that it is something that was marked by Charles DeFrance that you were asked to photograph.
Correct.
Could I have 3204, please? What do we see in this photograph?
This is a close-up of impact 9-63 on that seat back of row 10, seat 14.
3206?
This is a close-up photograph of 9-64, which was located just underneath of 9-63, again in row 10, seat 14.
3207?
This is an overall photograph of the back of row 10, seat 14, with impact 9-65 and 9-66.
3208?
This is a close-up of 9-65, which was located in the back of row 10, seat 14.
3209?
This is another close-up photograph of impact 9-66, the same seat, same row, row 10, seat 14.
And would you approach the model and note where row 10, seat 14 is in the theater?
Okay, so coming back up to row 10, so 3 rows up the stadium seating, the 14th seat over from the right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3210, 3211, 3212, and 3213.
Members of the jury, I know it's a little bit after 5. Can everybody stay till about 5:15? Is there anybody who cannot stay till 5:15? Okay, nobody's raising their hand. All right, we'll keep going for a little longer.
Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately represent what you observed in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3210, 11, 12, and 13.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection?
Under 3210 and 3212 under 403 in due process, otherwise no objection.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, the objections are overruled because I find that the probative value of the evidence in each exhibit is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. So P-TR-3210 and 3212 are admitted over objection and may be published. P-TR-3211 and 3213 are admitted without objection and may also be published.
Could I have 3210, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is an overall photograph of row 10, seat 15, so one seat over from the previous seat marked on the model.
3211?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-67, which is in the front of seat 15.
3212?
This is the back of that seat, row 10, seat 15, with impact 9-68.
And 3213?
This is a close-up photograph of that impact, 9-68.
And could you note on the model where seat 15 in row 10 is located?
Okay, coming back up to row 10, so 3 rows from the stadium seating. Seat 15 is going to be one seat to the right of the last seat that we marked on the model.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3214, 3215, 3218, 3219, and 3220. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3214, 15, 18, 19, and 20.
Ms. Spengler, any objection to those?
3218 under 403 and due process, otherwise no objection to the remainder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The objection is overruled because I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. So P-TR-3218 is admitted over objection and may be published. P-TR-3214, 3215, 3219, and 3220 are admitted without objection and may be published as well.
Could I have 3214, please? What are we looking at here?
This is an overall photograph of row 10, seat 16, so again, one seat over from the previous seat marked on the model.
3215?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-69 and 9-70 with black permanent marker around the impacts that Agent de France marked.
3218?
This is going to be the back of row 10, seat 16, with impact 9-71 and 9-72.
3219?
This is a close-up photograph of row 10, 3 rows in the stadium seating. It'll be one seat over to the right from the last seat marked.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3221, 3222, 3224, 3225, 3226, 3228, 3229, 3230, and 3231.
Yeah.
Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3221, 3222, 3224, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30, and 31.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
Objection to 3229, otherwise no objection to the remainder. 403 and due process objection.
All right, the objection under Rule 403 is overruled because I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns listed in the rule. So P-TR-3229 is admitted over objection and may be published. P-TR-3221, 3222, 3224, 3225, 3226, 3228, 3230, and 3231 are admitted without objection and may be published.
Could I have 3221 up, please? What are we looking at here?
This is an overall photograph of row 10, seat 17. Again, one seat over from the previous seat marked on the model.
3222?
This is a mid-range photograph of three impacts, 9-73, 9-74, and 9-75. One's located on the bottom of the armrest, and the other 9-75 is on the seat.
3224?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-75, again, row 10, seat 17.
3225?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-76, which was located in the bottom of that seat.
3226?
This is a photograph showing impacts 9-77 and 9-78, again, row 10, seat 17.
3228?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-78.
3229?
This is the back of row 10, seat 17, with impact 9-79.
3230?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-79.
And 3231?
This is going to be the back of that seat, again, row 10, seat 17, impact 9-80.
And would you mark on the model where row 10, seat 17 is located?
Yes. Okay, starting back up in row 10 again. Seat 17 is going to be one seat over from the last seat marked on the model, so one seat to the right.
I'm now going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 32, 32, 33, and 34.
Yeah.
Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 32, 32, 32, 33, and 32, 34.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3232, 3233, and 3234 are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3232, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is an overall photograph of row 10, seat 18. Once again, one seat over from the previous seat that we marked on the model.
3233?
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-81, located on the front of that seat.
3234?
This is going to be a close-up photograph of the back of the seat, impact 9-82.
And could you mark on the model where row 10, seat 18 is located?
Yes. So coming back up to row 10, the row that I've been marking in, seat 18 will be one seat over from seat 17 to the right.
I am next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 32, 35, 32, 36, 32, 37, 32, 38, 32, 39, 32, 40, 32, 41, and 32, 42.
Ms. Pearson, before you do that, you can hand those exhibits to her, but let's do it tomorrow, okay? We're going to go ahead and adjourn for the day.
All right, I will hang on to these.
All right, members of the jury, it's about 5:15. I very much appreciate your willingness to stay a little late. Please remember all the advisements I've been giving you. I know that I gave them to you yesterday, so I'm going to skip today. I'm going to give them to you tomorrow, so I'm warning you. You'll get them tomorrow again, because tomorrow will be the last day for the week, and then it's right before a long weekend. So I'll give them to you tomorrow. But I'm sure that all of you know them and remember them by heart. And so know them by heart, I should say, and remember them well. And I trust that you are complying with each and every one of them. Enjoy your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at the usual time. Okay, the record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Everyone may be seated. You're free to go until tomorrow. Your subpoena is continued until tomorrow, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Let me just briefly supplement the record. I made some rulings earlier today on objections under Rule 403, and there were a few times when the objection was made and I simply overruled the objection. In general, the objections, I think, had to do with photographs that depicted something that showed some blood. At least that's what I believed based on what I was seeing in the pictures and when the objections were being made. But these were pictures that depict something other than the blood. The blood is incidental to what the picture is being introduced for. And so I have found in each case that the probative value of the evidence was not substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice or any of the other concerns that are listed in Rule 403. It's not like the prosecution is going out of its way to show the blood. If that was the case and it was just gratuitously being introduced, I would sustain the objection. So by way of example, there was a picture, I think, that showed the theater from the back of the theater. And yes, there was some blood on the sidewalk. And then some of the pictures that were shown later were pictures of impact holes in the seats. And in some of those pictures, not many of them, there was some blood on the floor. Although I must say that there were some pictures that were introduced without objection that appeared to show blood as well. And there was no objection to those. But there's no surprise for the jury here that there's blood shown sometimes in these photographs. The jury knows what this case is about. This was a bloody scene. So this is not surprising to anyone. It's certainly not surprising to them. And again, the pictures are depicting something that is relevant, something that is probative, and whatever bloody aspect of the picture there may be is incidental to what is being shown. So that's why I have overruled those objections. And I haven't had a chance in each instance to provide specifics about my rulings. In a few instances, there was simply a 403 objection, and there was simply a ruling by me saying that the objection was overruled. And so I wanted to make sure that the record was supplemented. The defendant has a constitutional right to a fair trial. The defendant does not have a constitutional right to a sanitized trial. And you know, it would be improper for me to require that pictures that are probative be excluded because they show some blood, especially given the nature of the crimes that are charged. All right, is there anything we need to talk about on behalf of the people? Mr. Orman.
I didn't know you were calling me, Your Honor. I need to check with my colleagues.
Okay.
No, Your Honor. Thank
All
you.
right, anything we need to talk about on behalf of the defense? Ms. Spengler.
No.
Ms. Spengler.
No.
Thank you. Okay, we'll be in recess. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.